Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rotten Tomatoes is Wrong. I am your host, Mark Ellis. Jacqueline Coley out somewhere in the world on assignment. Perhaps she's covering the Cannes Film Festival, or maybe she found the Allspark for the Autobots. That's a reference to last week's episode where we covered Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen with two wonderful guests. So wonderful. We invited them back here for the following week. Dani Fernandez and Mark Bernardin. You're both great writers, great podcasters. Dani, you're a great actor. You guys do all the things all the time, including currently out there on the picket lines supporting the WGA. So welcome back to the show. How are things going out there in the world?
My tan's getting great.
Oh my God. My hair does change color. I want people to know. And I have natural highlights from it being
from the sun.
I actually have been very protective. I don't know if enough white people out there are protecting their skin as much as they should.
On behalf of all white people, and again, I was just in Mexico. We are not.
No.
We're just walking around there like pink salmon. We're just so dumb that, and it's me leading the charge, because what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of sunscreen and then I have like my what I know my problem spots are. So white people usually forget about the earlobes, but first thing I'm coating with the sunscreen is I go earlobes, I'll go all over my face, and then I always have like a random clavicle that I forget that turns pink, and then the back of the neck is another one that's a prime spot. So basically what the science is telling us now is if you are a lighter person, you just need to walk outside and have sunscreen all over your body at all times.
Oh, at all times. Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you were a darker person, it couldn't hurt. I have been recommending to the people of color that I see. It's like, hey, don't forget it.
Don't forget it?
I know we've often forgot it, myself included, but if we're going to be out there every day for 4 hours a day in the sun in Southern California, let's take care of ourselves.
True.
Yeah, this was when I was out in Mexico. The lifeguards who worked there, they had like full body suits that they wore because they're out there in the sun every day. And so they got to be super hot, but it's literally like a wetsuit, as opposed to like the lifeguards at the pool where I was growing up, where it's just like a skimpy bikini or just like some board shorts and this twirling the whistle. Like, no, they're head to toe covered, protected from the sun. It's not Baywatch. No. It's not even the Kings Mill pool back in Williamsburg, Virginia. It's just
Ziegfeld Follies,
different.
It's full suit.
And you know something about the sun because you grew up in Texas primarily, right?
Yeah,
Dani?
but I mean, also my family is also from Southern California as well, so I've always been in the sun. Never not been in the sun.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I love the sun. I love vitamin D. Lord knows Molly the Wonder Dog loves it.
Yeah.
I think the dog is like solar powered because
they know they need vitamin D.
Right. But she'll wake up. Now she wakes up at like 11:30 noon, and
she literally is 16. She's a 16-year-old.
She sleeps in, and then you get her going. She's kind of like a diesel engine. Takes a minute to warm her up, and then she just once she gets in the sun, she's just like she's bathing in it. But she's absorbing the power of the sun, much like what the Decepticons were trying to harvest in Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, which is Oscar nominated, as Dani wanted to point out. And then by nighttime, Molly's just running all over the place because she's got all that solar energy inside of her.
I can't believe that you did that transition back to
I will keep coming back to Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen because as of tomorrow, Rise of the Beast is out in theaters. And Mark, as you brought up on the show last week, like every one of these Transformers trailers just looks so awesome. It's like they finally got it turned around. Bumblebee did actually turn it around, 91% on the tomato meter. So hopefully Rise of the Beast. And just to get your clear-cut opinion on this, Dani, do we think Rise of the Beast has what it takes to be the second fresh Transformers movie in the live-action canon?
I gotta go. I know Mark brought up that it has Anthony Ramos. I think he's so beloved. It's gonna be hard to not love this film.
And he's such a more grounded kind of lead character than what Shia LaBeouf was. And like part of that was just the Michael Bay direction, but and in Revenge of the Fallen, when he's doing all the beautiful mind stuff, he's so manic all the time, which I think worked for like his character in Disturbia early on in his career, stuff like that. But yeah, Anthony Ramos is just like a guy everybody can root for. And it was like what Haley Steinfeld was in Bumblebee. So I'm excited about this movie. The more I start thinking about the trailer, I'm like, yeah, we could get a really good film, but trailers have lied to us before, particularly in this franchise.
That's their job. to convince you of a thing that may or may not be true.
Well, I mean, for you, I mean, I know you guys are big cinephiles, but you also have busy schedules with your various things, and now you add a strike to the whole thing. So you don't have a lot of time just to get out there and see a flick. Is there a movie that you circled on your calendar coming out later this summer that you say, I need to be there opening night?
Yeah. The minute I saw the first trailer for this movie, I was in the bag. The minute I knew this movie was coming, I was in the bag. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning.
Okay.
Is my jam because Tom Cruise is the closest we have to Jackie Chan. In that, here's a man who will probably kill himself for my $15.
Put his life on the line.
He will throw himself off a thing. He will jump off a thing. He will run for as far as a man has ever run before.
Yes, he will.
All for the price of admission. And I appreciate that dedication to earning my money.
I think our expert researcher, Mark Hoffmeyer, I want to say that he clocked all of the times that Tom Cruise ran, or this might have been from another article. I want to make sure I give credit where credit's due. I think Tom Cruise total on-screen running has cleared like 6 miles. Like in all of his movies, you put them together, I think he's done over 6 miles.
I mean, in Mission Impossible 3, they tell him how far he's got to run. Like that's the first really great one. It's like, oh, it's Simon Pegg. You're like, look at the map. You've got to run like 1.5 miles to get there. And it's like, all right, whoosh, and then off the hands go, and he's pumping, and it's a solid cut of just watching him run in Shanghai across, like, yeah. All of that, all the time.
Yeah.
And that became like the fetish of these movies. It's like, make him run.
Make him run, make him do crazy stunts. Dead Reckoning on your list, Dani, of must-see theater?
I feel that he has more certifications than any other actor. Because he can like fly. He has like pilot. I think he does have. He has so many. He got some for Top Gun, right? And like.
I'm sure the Days of Thunder got him some like
he can like drive a
stuff.
Truck and like a motorcycle, and you have to have different certifications and licenses for those.
Sure. Well, I know he wanted to go even farther with Top Gun Maverick because like he was flying. I think he was flying like a Hornet or like an F-14. I want to say the plane in the movie is an F-18. That's the character in the movie. But I think they like repeatedly applied to the Navy. Whoever's in charge of the Navy, Tom Cruise kept lobbying like, hey, can I please fly an F-18? And they're like, dude, we're not letting you fly an F-18.
You know how he would get it? He should just join. I'm serious. What else does he have? That's his final task in life. He could just join the Navy, and then he could work his way up the ladder there.
I know.
That would be such a great, if we could film that, if we could make that documentary series.
I 100% believe he would do that.
Yes.
Like, if you pitch that to him, it's like, listen, man, you're too old for this. I know you don't want to hear it. You're like 68 years old. Nobody's going to insure you to do this. The only thing left for you to do is enlist. Be the oldest rookie.
I hope his eyes are good. Got to have good eyes. You want to be a pilot. There used to be a show on Discovery Channel, and it was like BUDS training, which is what the Navy SEALs go through. And it was just so compelling because of the incredible athleticism, like the grueling things that they have to perform and pull off in order to become a Navy SEAL. And the way that you quit, there's like an actual way that you quit BUDS training because so many people wash out is you take your helmet and you wake up in the morning, and when you're done, you take your helmet and you just put it next to the previous helmet, and you just go back to wherever you were going to be doing in the Navy because it's that damn tough. And from the first episode to the last episode every season, it's like no helmets and a slew of helmets just because it is so damn tough. Tom Cruise, maybe that one guy that could pull it off.
Yeah.
All right, so Mission Impossible, maybe not the highest on Dani's movie watching calendar this summer. What is the movie that you said, oh, I got to see this?
I'm really excited for The Blackening. So I know Dwayne Perkins, who's in it. That also is premiering, or maybe by the time this came out, premiered at TIFF. Indie that I believe got picked up by Lionsgate. So I'm really excited. All black cast. And I think they're on the poster, it says, we can't all die first. I'm just so excited. One, horror, is my jam. I think it's such a great way. Both of our short films are horror thrillers.
Oh, yeah, you guys have short films I wanted to mention, too. Dani, yours is In the Static, and it's premiering at Waleef. It might have already premiered as of this.
Right, yes.
And Mark, your short
is called Splinter. And I think if this is mid-June, then I will be on my way to the Chattanooga Film Festival.
Cool.
In Tennessee, which is apparently phenomenal. Like, I've heard nothing but good things. Because at first I got like, Chattanooga? Okay. My producer's like, you have to submit to Chattanooga. And I'm super excited to go.
And you were at Overlook, which is a horror festival
which is a horror film festival. We played the Pan-African Film Festival. We'll be showing it at Comic-Con this year.
That's amazing.
Very exciting.
Ooh, what day at Comic-Con?
Probably Thursday, it's looking.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
super
great.
Exciting.
Good for you.
Yeah, so
Splinter.
I love horror. I love POC made horror films as well, and so that I'm really excited.
Yeah. And Tim Story directed from the barbershop.
Yes, yeah.
What were y'all's like horror influences growing up? Because I know that even before you were horror filmmakers, you had like this love of the genre. So, Dani, when you're growing up, you got San Diego, Texas. We already mentioned you grew up in these nice sunshiny states. What was it about like the horror genre that spoke to you? And what horror properties, shows, movies, novels were you like,
horror,
oh, this is what I love?
Well, honestly, horror loves Texas. Obviously, there's Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Horror loves Texas.
It does. And then you have
Great
stuff
bumper
like
sticker.
and then you have stuff like The Hills Have Eyes, which is my family would go on road trips, and you're in those areas where there's like nobody, out there, where it's just kind of you at any moment you could be taken advantage of.
Nobody that you can see.
Nobody that you can see. Definitely stopped at gas stations that were similar to that.
We don't get many visitors this way no more.
Exactly.
You kids going camping?
There's many areas that are still like that. I loved Halloween. Will always love Halloween. I just have so much respect for the original Halloween. Love that. I know Mark and I also grew up on the Twilight Zone.
Very much
heavy
so.
Influence. And as much as that is sci-fi, it also is a try not to cuss here, a ton of horror in it, with episodes like The Masks.
Frightening accuracy in the Twilight Zone too. Foretelling and ahead of its time in many ways. Such a progressive show that I don't think a lot of people gave it credit for because they just thought they were watching sci-fi horror.
God, so
and there's
good.
a whole lot of social commentary Rod Serling had in there too.
With The Real Martian, Please Stand Up. It's
Yeah.
all about sort of McCarthyism and, Eye of the Beholder is just frightening. Global warming, climate change, all of that stuff is in there. It's so good.
Every time we're on a plane, we still look at the wing just to make sure there isn't a
love
man
it.
on the wing.
He's gotten it in. He's gotten it in your head. Yeah, that was also a terrifying. Is this man having a psychotic? William Shatner. Is this man having a psychotic breakdown, or is he actually seeing a gremlin?
Yeah, Mark, what were your early influences?
I remember the first one that really scared the pants off me was The Exorcist, because I didn't believe that a movie that was as old as I was
Right.
had any effect. It made in 1971. I was like, how scary could this be? And it terrifying.
I was similarly way too cocky going into my first official viewing of The Exorcist. It was on TV when we were living in Northern California, and me and my brother and sister, we were too young to get it. So all we saw was this girl in bed throwing up and cussing, and we thought it was awesome. We thought it was hilarious. Like, yeah, she's giving it to her mom. And then in fifth grade, like we rented a slumber party and watched it, and I didn't sleep well, probably to this day after that. I mean, that movie affected me.
Very much so. Evil Dead 2 was huge for me. Nightmare on Elm Street, the OG, and I think The Thing. The Thing might be my favorite horror movie.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's
The
so
practical
great.
effects.
All the practical effects and just the patience that it has, the amount of time that it takes, and it's lulling you into it. It's hypnotizing you into the narrative of the movie. And then when everything goes wrong, it's phenomenal. And then it's got maybe my favorite last scene of a movie ever, where like, not gonna spoil, a 30-year-old movie.
Yeah.
But it's, one of these guys is probably infected and you don't know who and you don't know when. Is it over or is it not? And I love that to death.
And it's getting into peak Kurt Russell, which is
peak Kurt Russell, John Carpenter again, the master. Yeah, but I was a big 80s horror kid and then sort of fell off in like the 90s and the early 2000s.
I mean, I used to love staying up late with my sister watching like USA Up All Night and stuff like that, where they would start running horror movies, and not necessarily good ones, but you would have horror movies like The Killer Baby from It's Alive and you like your Christine's, which is a really cool premise for a horror movie based on the Stephen King. And then you also have The Exorcist, which, by the way, I don't know how much y'all are aware of this because I had no idea this was a thing that was happening, but when I was at CinemaCon, they ran a little trailer for Exorcist. I can't remember the subtitle of it, but it's like a Blumhouse thing, and holy God. Whew. It's going to do things to me again. I'm going to need to borrow Molly for those nights when I get home from seeing The Exorcist, because it is going to scare the crap out of me.
Mark, I'm curious if you, and I totally get falling off in the 90s. I don't know if we have as many hits as the 80s did, but did you kind of come back with Scream? Or were you like, nah, you were past that?
I mean, I watched the Screams and like I know what you did last
I'm talking about
summer.
the first Scream.
Yes.
Different than all the other Screams.
I've seen the first two Screams and then it just got silly for me. I think the last horror movie that I saw in a theater was The Ring.
Yeah. It was solid.
Great theater experience.
Which is, it was amazing. And then it became like, it got torturous for me. I don't.
Yeah, yes.
It became torture porn as
it
a
was.
thing, and it became like I just didn't relish that feeling. It got so manipulative, like jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. I don't want the jump scare. Like I want the existential scare. That's what like 80s and 90s horror did for me because they didn't have a lot of the tools. So it became here's the implacable, unstoppable bad guy. Here's a dude who can get into your dreams. Like that became the thing that just monkeyed with my head in ways that I didn't need gore and jolts to get. And then I think the last one that I really kind of dug into was Cabin in the Woods because it's both. It functions as horror, but then it's something else completely different.
Throws everything at you.
Throws everything at you.
I love that elevator opening scene in
so
Cabin
great.
in the Woods where it's just everything you've ever been scared of just
ding.
I'd put The Strangers up there too, with a movie like post 2000 that felt like one of the classic thrillers, where it's just this couple in this remote area, and that trailer sold it so well. Just a dude with burlap on his head, just peeking in and then peeking back out. Oh my God, that movie's scary as hell.
Yeah, and like Funny Games, like Michael Haneke's Funny
Creepy,
Games.
yeah.
But it's about like just invading your space. It's a home invasion movie, and the unknowability of why people are doing the things that they're doing. Like that's the stuff that's so frightening to me that I don't need, the mirror closing and the bad guy. But look, that's not what horror does for me.
I do think in the aughts it did take this turn, which I equate to Saw, which I do think Saw was very smart and innovative, but then there were so many copycats of it that it did turn into this torture porn that I just didn't excite. Like I just couldn't stomach it, and it also wasn't the horror that I grew up with and enjoyed.
Yeah, and like the Hostel movies,
and,
and stuff like Green Room. Like I understand the appeal
House of
of
Wax,
it.
I think, was also another like kind of torturous, and honestly, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is in there. It is.
Yeah, I mean, I was never a Texas Chainsaw guy. I just never needed it, and so I prefer the more psychological stuff.
Yeah.
That's why Freddy Krueger is so cool because like there's no real defense. Like the whole thing about Freddy is that he preys on you when you are defenseless. You're literally asleep, and so you got to be very creative if you want to get out of that mess. And I'm just wondering for you two. Is there a way to still revive these properties that makes sense, or do we just leave them buried, which is the hardest thing to do in horror and in the movies themselves because the bad guys always come back? But, I mean, Halloween, if nothing else, the most recent trilogy was successful. And I think people have their opinions on the individual films. It seems like you always run into somebody who likes one of them. It might not be the same one that you like, but they like at least one of these new movies. But is there room for another reboot of Friday the 13th or another Nightmare on Elm Street? Or is it just really time to just move on to something else?
I'm going to tell you yes, because there will always be, they're going to keep rebooting these as we'll have a Scream 8 or whatever.
The Screams look like they're not running out of steam anytime soon.
No, but I do think horror is the one place that you can actually break new IP, because I think people are always hungry for horror. I think it's one of the best places for new filmmakers and newer writers to really get in there. We saw that with It Follows, with The Babadook, with I think people are just excited for. I think people will show up for horror. I think you really can't go wrong. Ma was another one.
Oren Peli with Paranormal Activity, and
Paranormal
also
Activity
proving you can make these movies and not necessarily
franchise.
have them be expensive to make.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's the Blumhouse model, right? Like, we're going to make it for $3 million, and then we'll make 15 in the theater. That's how horror always used to work. And that's how, for the most part, Hollywood used to work. It was just, here's our metric.
Right.
And horror will always pull an audience. Horror will always perform. No matter what social time you're in, the horror of it is still there's something to be scared of. I think I agree that like we're never going to get away from the IP of it just because that's the world we live in. But I think like finding people who can do like The Invisible Man, I thought was a really smart remake.
Yeah.
In that it's divorced almost entirely from what the original was, except for the name, but it's updated, it's modernized. It makes you afraid of a thing that we currently have now, as opposed to a guy who, I've taken this potion that's making me invisible. I'm going to do naughty things while I'm invisible.
Yeah.
And with Lee Whannell, I think it was also a film that you can make free of the pressure of rebooting an entire universe, like what the Dark Universe was going to be, where you don't have to have this one movie with Tom Cruise and a mummy be so super beloved that you can launch an entire franchise on it. Just make a cool individual horror movie and see what happens.
Yeah.
I did want to say our friend Akela Cooper wrote *Malignant* and *Megan*, which I'm sure those have launched franchises just with how well they did. So I do think horror is one of the few places that you can break into.
And speaking of the Halloween movies, David Gordon Green doing those, he is the director of The Exorcist Believer, is what producer Brian has updated me on. So I think that comes out this fall. And again, the footage that we saw at CinemaCon, I was watching the Flash movie like later in the day, but I was still just thinking about the...
I will take your word for it.
Oh, good Lord, just scared the crap out of me. I want to make a very, very hard pivot.
Oh my God.
The entire 180 or 90 degrees, however hard this Fast and Furious turn is, because a little wizard behind the curtain, we're taping this before, but as of the airing of this, producer Brian's got married.
Aww.
Hey, he got married.
Yay.
I'm told the ceremony was lovely. The Reverend was hit or miss, but everybody else was great, and I'll be performing it. So I want to ask y'all your best wedding scenes in movies. What's the best wedding that you've seen in a film? I will set the bar and start the bidding at Spaceballs. Great wedding, because there's kind of like the wedding that was supposed to happen, then doesn't. Then we do get married at the end. We do the super, super short version. Do you? Okay, you're married. Great,
Nice.
great bit.
I think that the wedding that I like the most in movies, I think, is in Crazy Rich Asians. Like, I kind of love that wedding sequence. I think with like the water on the ground and the lilies and the rich people weddings are the best weddings.
And that's slightly more of a wedding film than Spaceballs.
A little bit. But also, I think my favorite is Princess Bride. My marriage is what brings us together.
Have you performed a wedding?
I never have.
Okay,
Nobody
so-
would be stupid enough to ask me to do so.
It gets into your head because I've done a few of them now, and when you say, because you say the word marriage a couple times, and luckily I didn't grow up really with The Princess Bride for whatever reason. I've seen it a couple times. I respect it. I know it's got its legion of fans, but it's hard to have marriage in your head and still say marriage. I guess it's good that it's such a popular movie, Dani. So even if I slipped and said marriage, people would think I'm making a joke, like making a reference, but I wasn't. It's just in your head. So
I would
deep.
push you down the altar if you were my
did what?
my priest.
What is your wedding movie? Is there a dream wedding sequence you saw?
The thing that just keeps coming up is Wedding Crashers, which I guess came out around the time that we were like that Transformers.
2005, I think. Yeah, it was right around there.
So all of those are like in this special little area of my semi-youth.
When you're like, oh, this is what it'll be like to be a fully fledged adult.
Bradley Cooper being like a POS.
Such a dick.
Yeah.
And then he sort of plays the same version of that character in The Hangover, but he's a little more likable, even though he's still got that douchey quality to him. And then from there, he just became one of the biggest stars on the planet. Rightfully so. He's great.
Right. And then I think he internalized a lot of that for Rocket. That's basically Rocket Raccoon is a piece of crap.
Is that punk rich guy from Wedding Crashers?
I mean, he's just like a dick.
If Rocket had collars, they'd be popped.
But yeah, Wedding Crashers was so much fun. And I actually found out in like filming something else that they had in their script the thing about every time I think of eye drops, I think of how he got diarrhea. But you can actually like really harm someone doing that. So don't do that ever.
Same with Dumb and Dumber. You know?
Oh, yeah. Did they do that in Dumb and Dumber?
He pours a lot for fast, effective relief.
Okay.
When Jeff Daniels has the poop scene, it's because Jim Carrey poisoned it because he knew that he was going out with, what's
Lauren
her face?
Holly.
Don't do that. Someone could end up in the hospital.
Yes, don't do anything you've ever seen in a movie ever.
Yes, please.
Especially Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
There's like nothing you should actually try in Dumb and Dumber.
No.
If your friend is allergic to hot pepper, or even if somebody kidnapped you and they're allergic to hot pepper, I guess do what you will. But they poison the guy and he ends up dying because they also give him rat poison instead of his pills. So.
I do have to say I do sometimes pet Molly and say, pretty bird. Pretty bird.
He sold the bird to the blind kid. His head fell off.
Pretty bird.
Our pets' heads are falling off here at Rotten Tomatoes. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of After Dark, just about. But before we say goodnight, I want to get another update on everything in Mark and Dani's world. So, Dani, why don't you step up to the plate first here? We know we got In the Static. I think it just premiered at Walif, the Latino Film Festival.
You look great on the carpet.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
And
out here, we also got into Essence Fest, so we'll be there in New Orleans.
In New Orleans.
For all of our New Orleans listeners out there.
Oh, I might have to make that trip.
I know.
Once you have a beignet.
It.
Oh, man.
I actually walked around by myself and ate all oysters at every bar. Like I would go because my friends were busy filming out there. It's big production. A lot of productions are happening.
So whereas most people go to downtown New Orleans and they get a beer at each bar, you were getting an oyster at each bar and doing
so that
shots?
I could sit and get water.
Yeah.
This was last year, by the way. So this but yeah, I would I would get half a dozen oysters. So and then I would go and then I'd walk around for another few hours and then I would sit at a bar and I'd order their oysters because I wanted to taste all the different ones.
I got to look up the hotel. There's a famous haunted hotel that I stayed there. I didn't realize that it was a famous haunted hotel when I was staying there. This is after the fact, but I'll never forget. I was in the lobby and me and my friend Eliza, we were doing a stand-up show at a theater there. We get to the hotel, get checked in, walk into the elevators. Huge portrait, like an old French portrait, and the person in the paint looked exactly like me. Exactly. There's only 9 faces in the world. It looked exactly like me, and it just kind of freaked me out. And it is now one of the reputed most haunted hotels. So I'll let you know which hotel it is. Should you want to not stay there and be haunted by
Ancestor
15th
Ellis?
century?
Yeah. Did you
Ellis.
stay in the room?
I stayed in a very nice room, and that's the one hotel where you actually don't want to stay in the nicest room because that's probably where all the rich dead people are haunting it.
Nice.
But it was it not a lot of sleep was had that night. I'll say
Fair
that.
enough.
Yeah. So, Mr. Bernardin, you also
Yes.
have a short splinter about the piece of allspark that Sam Witwicky had recovered.
Yes, not about a giant rat who teaches turtles how to do kung fu. I'll be at Chattanooga at the Chattanooga Film Fest. I will be at Comic-Con, showing it off there on a panel with hopefully some of my cast and members of my crew. And yeah, it's super exciting. It's fun.
That's so cool. Keep us posted here at RT is Wrong when you know the exact date of when it's planned so I can relay it to all the kids out there because I want to go check it out too.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be down there at Comic-Con. Dani, I imagine you're always sought after panelist down there.
I'm sure I'll be there.
Yeah, I got it. My stand-up show is on Thursday of Comic-Con at American Comedy Company, 8 p.m. And you can get tickets at markellis.live. My special should be dropping a little earlier in July, so I got to start writing some new Got to start writing some new material.
That's right. I think last year, it may happen this year as well. I do a live Fat Man Beyond with Kevin Smith, and it always seems to be counter-programming with Mark Ellis. So, not that you have to choose, world, but you have to choose.
Well, I was just going to say make sure Splinter isn't premiering at the time my stand-up show, because I want to go check that out.
It'll be during the day.
Yeah.
It'll be during the
there you
day.
go.
All right, so once Fat Man Beyond Live is sold out, come on over to the stand-up show. I'm sure we'll both sell out. There's a lot of our
nerds.
people down there, and I'm sure we'll bump into each other at the parties and all that good stuff. So best of luck, and thank you all for all the great work you're doing representing the WGA out there on the picket line. When you're driving by in SoCal, you see all those lovely picketers out there. Give them a honk. Give them your support. It's certainly a stressful time, but it's impressive to see how much fun the WGA is making with different theme days. They had a Singles Day.
Singles Day.
Couple
There's
weeks ago.
Superhero Day. There was a horror day at the Sony lot. There's sort of the affinity groups. So there was like Black writers at Paramount and Latino writers over here. Like it's kind of all over and everywhere, and it's wonderful until it will stop being wonderful.
It'll stop being wonderful. Well,
until we all run out of gas.
Keep putting those good vibes out there in the world. That is Mark Bernardin and Dani Fernandez. For the whole crew here, including my incredible co-host, Jacqueline Coley, I am merely Mark Ellis. Go to RottenTomatoes.com for all the latest in the world of TV, movies, and everything in between. And do we know what movie we're doing next week? We do not know. It's a mystery. So stay tuned here from all of us to all of you at Rotten Tomatoes is Wrong.